The stars were quiet that night. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the sunrise, watching the endless darkness of space through the main window. Behind him, his crew worked silently at their stations. This was supposed to be a peaceful mission. No weapons, no soldiers, just families, doctors, and scientists traveling to help others. 2,000 humans filled the ship. Many of them were children. They laughed and played in the lower decks, unaware of what was coming. Among them was the Admiral's own daughter. She was 24 years old, a scientist who studied alien life. This was her first trip beyond Earth's solar system. Smiled when he thought of her. She had her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn heart. She wanted to see the galaxy, to learn its secrets, to help species she had never met. He was proud of her. The sunrise was traveling to a planet called Prime. Leaders from many worlds would gather there to discuss medicine and food for dying planets. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Union for almost 100 years now. They were known as peaceful people, traders, healers, talkers. The galaxy thought humans were soft. The galaxy was wrong. But that truth was still hidden. For now the sunrise flew through space like a bird without claws, defenseless, trusting. Then the sensors screamed. 3 massive ships appeared from nowhere. They had been hiding, waiting. Their hulls were black and covered with weapons. The symbol on their sides made blood run cold. The Dominion. They were not part of the Galactic Union. They were conquerors. They took what they wanted and killed anyone who stood in their way. For centuries, they had watched humanity grow stronger in the Union. They hated it. They wanted to teach the galaxy a lesson about power. The first blast hit the sunrise before anyone could react. The ship shook like a toy in a giant's hand. Lights flickered. Alarms filled the air with their terrible song. Grabbed the railing to keep from falling. Shields down, someone shouted. Engines failing. His mind raced. They had no weapons, no way to fight back. 2,000 innocent people were on this ship. Children, families, his daughter. He made the only choice he could. Open a channel, he ordered. All frequencies, tell them we surrender. The message went out to every ship, every station, every world that could hear. The sunrise was surrendering. They were asking for mercy. The commander answered. His name was Overlord, and his face appeared on every screen in the ship. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes like black stones. When he smiled, his teeth were sharp. Surrender, laughed. The sound was ugly. Humans think they can surrender, how sweet. He gave an order. His soldiers had already boarded the sunrise during the attack. They moved through the halls like shadows, grabbing people, dragging them away. Watched helplessly as his crew was taken. He watched as families were torn apart. Then did something that would change history. He lined up 200 humans in front of a camera. Men, women, children. They were crying, begging, holding each other. The whole galaxy was watching. The Galactic Union had eyes everywhere, and this broadcast was going to every world, every station, every home. Raised his hand. Let this be a lesson, he said. Humanity is weak. The Union is weak. Only they are strong. He dropped his hand. The soldiers opened fire. 200 people died in seconds. Their bodies fell like leaves in autumn. The screams echoed through the ship, through space, through the hearts of everyone watching. A little girl no older than 6 was among them. She had been holding a stuffed animal. Fell to his knees. His crew wept. Somewhere on the ship, watched the broadcast and covered her mouth to keep from screaming. She knew some of those people. She had talked to them just hours ago. The galaxy watched in horror. The High Council of the Galactic Union called an emergency meeting. Ancient species who had lived for millions of years spoke of negotiation, of compromise, of finding a peaceful solution. This was how things were done. This was how things had always been done. But on Earth, something different was happening. President sat in a dark room. She was alone. The screen in front of her showed the massacre over and over again. She watched the little girl fall. She watched the mother reach for her child. She watched the old man try to shield his grandson. Her hands did not shake. Her eyes did not blink. She had seen this before, not in space but in history books, in old photographs, in the memories of her grandparents who had survived horrors most species could not imagine. Humanity remembered. They always remembered. An aide entered the room carefully. "Madam President, the Galactic Council is requesting our presence at negotiations. They have demands, territory, tribute. They say they will release the remaining hostages if we agree." Did not look away from the screen. The little girl fell again. The stuffed animal tumbled from her fingers. "Madam President," the aide asked, "what should I tell them?" Slowly reached out and turned off the screen. The room fell into darkness. When she spoke, her voice was calm, cold, certain. "Tell them that humans do not negotiate with murderers." The aide's face went pale. "But the hostages?" "Tell them," stood up. Her shadow stretched across the wall like something ancient awakening. "And tell our people to prepare. We are done pretending to be harmless." The message was sent. The galaxy heard it, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the rules of civilization were about to change. On the sunrise, Overlord laughed when he received humanity's response. He thought it was a bluff. He thought they were fools. He was wrong. The storm was coming, and when it arrived, the galaxy would learn what humans truly were. The Galactic Union had never seen anything like this. For 10,000 years, every war had ended with words. Every conflict had been solved at a table. Ancient species sat in their grand halls and talked about peace while drinking rare wines and eating delicate foods. They believed that violence was primitive. They believed that civilized beings always found another way. They did not understand humans. Ambassador of the was the first to speak to the human delegation. They were tall and beautiful, with silver skin and soft voices. They had stopped every war in the Union's history. They were masters of making enemies become friends. "Please," said to Ambassador Myra, the human representative, "you must reconsider. They are brutal, yes. But if we offer them some planets, some resources, they will release your people. This is how peace works." Myra was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had been a diplomat for 30 years. She had smiled at species who disgusted her. She had shaken hands with beings who hated her kind. But today, she did not smile. "You want us to give away our homes," she said slowly, "because murderers asked nicely." "It is not about what we want," explained patiently. "It is about saving lives. The living matter more than pride." "I agree." Myra leaned forward. "The living do matter more than pride. That is why we will not teach every monster in the galaxy that killing our children gets them what they want." Did not understand. None of them did. While the diplomats argued, something was happening in deep space. In hidden places far from any map, massive ships were waking up. They had been sleeping for decades, waiting for a moment that everyone hoped would never come. The Terran Black Fleet. For 100 years, humanity had told the galaxy they were peaceful. They said they had only small defense ships. They said they believed in talking, not fighting. Every species believed them. Humans were so friendly, so helpful, so eager to make friends. It was all true. Humans did love peace. But humans also remembered their history. They remembered what happened when good people had no weapons and bad people had many. They remembered names that still burned in their hearts: Rwanda, Auschwitz. They swore that such things would never happen again. And unlike others, they kept that promise. 47 ships emerged from the darkness. They were not pretty like vessels. They were not elegant like cruisers. They were black and sharp, covered with weapons that the galaxy had never seen. Each one could destroy a planet. Each one was commanded by soldiers who had trained in secret for their entire lives. Fleet Admiral stood on the bridge of the Silent Thunder, the largest ship in the fleet. He was 60 years old, with white hair and scars on his hands. He had fought in wars that no one knew about, against enemies that had been erased from history. He had never lost. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his officer said. Nodded, his eyes were fixed on the stars. Somewhere out there, almost 2,000 humans were waiting to be saved. Among them was the daughter of a man he had known for 40 years. "Set course for Prime," he ordered. "Maximum speed." The ships vanished into the darkness. Back on the Sunrise, Admiral Park was not waiting helplessly. He could not fight them with weapons, but he could fight them with his mind. He gathered the surviving crew in secret meetings. They whispered plans in the dark corners of the ship. They counted guards. They memorized patrol routes. His daughter was doing something even more important. She was a scientist, not a soldier, but she knew things about alien bodies that even the did not know. Using supplies from the medical bay, she began making something. It looked like simple medicine. It was not. "What is that?" a young mother asked her. The woman was holding a sleeping baby, one of the youngest survivors. "Something to help the children stay calm," said softly. "If they come for them, they need to be quiet. They need to be still. This will help." The mother's eyes filled with tears. She understood. If the children cried or screamed, that would hurt them, was trying to protect them the only way she could. "Thank you," the mother whispered. Just nodded and kept working. Her hands were steady. Her mind was focused. She would not let fear stop her. Overlord, meanwhile, was enjoying himself. He sent another message to the galaxy. He stood in front of the camera with 50 humans kneeling behind him. Guards held weapons to their heads. "Humanity has refused to negotiate," he announced. "How foolish, how sad for these poor creatures." He gave the signal. 50 more humans died. The galaxy watched in horror. The Union leaders begged humanity to reconsider. They promised to help, to support, to stand with them if they would just come to the table. President's response was broadcast to every world. She stood alone in front of a simple black background. No flags, no symbols, just her face and her voice. "To Overlord and the Dominion, you have taken our people, you have murdered our children, you believe this makes you strong. You are wrong." Her voice was calm, but it carried a weight that made even the ancient species pause. "You have not shown strength. You have shown that you are animals who must be put down. There will be no negotiation. There will be no tribute. There will only be consequences." She paused. The galaxy held its breath. "You have 48 hours to release every hostage unharmed. If even one more human dies, we will not stop until the Dominion exists only in history books. This is not a threat. This is a promise, and humanity always keeps its promises." The broadcast ended. Overlord laughed when he heard it. His advisors laughed with him. They had thousands of ships. They had conquered dozens of species. What could a few human vessels do? But some of the older did not laugh. They had seen something in that woman's eyes, something they had never seen before. It was not anger, it was not hatred. It was certainty. And for the first time in centuries, they felt something cold creeping into their hearts. Fear. Overlord did not believe in human threats. He had conquered species that were older than humanity. He had destroyed fleets that were larger than anything Earth could build. He sat in his throne room on Prime and laughed at the countdown. 48 hours, what a joke. At the 40-hour mark, he decided to show the galaxy what he thought of human promises. He gathered 10 more hostages and brought them before the cameras. The whole galaxy was watching again, billions of eyes on thousands of worlds. "Humans think they can scare me," said, his sharp teeth showing in a cruel smile. "Let me show you what I think of their ultimatum." 10 more people died. A teacher, a doctor, a grandfather who had been telling stories to the children just hours ago. Turned to the camera. 8 hours left, humans. What will you do? Send me angry letters. He laughed and ended the broadcast. 8 hours passed. At exactly 48 hours, something impossible happened. The Terran Black Fleet did not arrive through normal space. They did not fly in slowly like other ships. They simply appeared. One moment, the sky above Prime was empty. The next moment, 47 ships hung in the darkness like wolves surrounding a wounded deer. They detected them too late. Alarms screamed across the planet. Defense systems activated. Thousands of warships scrambled to respond. Fleet Admiral looked at the chaos below and felt nothing. He had a job to do. "All ships," he said calmly, "begin Operation Quiet Storm. Remember your targets, remember your training, and remember why we are here." The battle lasted 11 minutes. 11 minutes to destroy centuries of military power. The human ships moved in ways that seemed impossible. They appeared and disappeared, striking from angles that they could not predict. Their weapons cut through shields like paper. Their defenses absorbed everything they threw at them. But the most terrifying thing was what the humans did not destroy. They did not touch the cities. They did not harm the civilians. Every shot, every missile, every attack hit only military targets. Weapons factories vanished in balls of fire. Warships became floating graves. Defense stations crumbled into dust. But the schools, the hospitals, the homes where families cowered in fear were completely untouched. The message was clear: we can destroy everything. We choose to destroy only what deserves destruction. At the same time, a smaller ship approached the captured Sunrise. It carried a special team led by Commander. She was 40 years old, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much death. She did not enjoy killing, but she was very, very good at it. 32 guards on the ship, her officer reported. Hostages are being held in 3 locations. The children are in the main cargo bay. Nodded, we go in quiet. No explosions near the hostages. Every shot must be perfect. Her team agreed. They had trained for moments like this. Every one of them had memorized the ship's layout. Every one of them knew exactly where to go and what to do. They entered through an airlock that they had forgotten to guard. The first guard died before he knew anyone was there. The second guard managed to raise his weapon before broke his neck with her bare hands. They moved through the ship like ghosts. No alarms, no warnings, just silent death for anyone wearing colors. In the cargo bay, the children huddled together in the darkness. Park sat among them, holding a small boy named Go. He was 8 years old and he had not stopped shaking since the attack began. His mother had died in the first massacre. His father had died in the second. "It's okay," whispered, stroking his hair. "Help is coming, I promise." The doors exploded inward. Guards spun around, raising their weapons. For a terrible moment, thought they were going to fire on the children. Then shadows moved behind the guards, and her team emerged from the darkness. The guards fell one by one. One soldier, the last one standing, pointed his weapon at Little. His finger touched the trigger. Crossed the distance in 2 steps. She grabbed his arm and twisted it backward. The weapon fired into the ceiling. Then she drove her fist into his throat and he dropped like a stone. The children stared at her with wide eyes. This small human woman had just killed a soldier twice her size with her hands. His expression softened. She knelt down to their level. "You are safe now," she said gently. "We are going to take you home." The children began to cry, not from fear but from relief, felt tears streaming down her own face. She hugged. On the bridge of the Sunrise, Admiral Park heard the rescue team approaching. He had been waiting for this moment, praying for it, dreaming of it. The door opened, and a young soldier stepped through. "Admiral Park, Commander sends her regards. Your ship is secure." Let out a breath he had been holding for days. "The hostages." "Alive, sir, most of them. We lost some, but we saved many more." Closed his eyes. They had lost 153 people in total. 153 names he would never forget. But 1,847 were going home. His daughter was going home. Above Prime, Overlord was trying to escape. His personal ship fled from the dying fleet, running toward the edge of the system. He had always been a coward beneath his cruelty. Bullies usually were. But the humans had planned for this. A single shot from Admiral's ship disabled engines. The Overlord's vessel drifted helplessly in space, unable to move, unable to fight, unable to run. "Bring him in alive," ordered. "The President wants him breathing." Soldiers captured and dragged him to the human fleet in chains. He screamed and threatened and promised terrible revenge. No one listened. The battle was over. The Dominion had lost everything in 11 minutes. And now, the galaxy would see what human justice looked like. Overlord arrived on Earth in chains. He was placed in a small gray room with no windows and one door. Guards stood outside day and night. He was given food and water. He was not harmed, but he was not free. The Galactic Union demanded that he be sent to their courts. Ambassador of the spoke for hours about ancient laws and civilized justice. The Union had rules for these situations. Criminals were studied. Their cultures were considered. Punishments focused on healing, not revenge. President listened politely, then she said no. "He murdered humans on human ships," she explained. "He will face human justice. This is not a discussion." The Union was shocked. For the first time, a member species was refusing to follow the rules. Some called it barbaric, others called it dangerous, but no one could stop it. The trial began on a cold Monday morning in a courtroom in Seoul. The room was old and simple, made of dark wood and plain stone. There were no grand decorations, no ancient symbols of power, just seats for witnesses, a place for the accused, and a judge who had served for 40 years. Every world in the galaxy watched the broadcast. Was brought in wearing gray prison clothes. His chains clinked with every step. He held his head high and sneered at the cameras. He still believed he was superior. He still believed he had done nothing wrong. The evidence came first. Videos of the attacks, recordings of his orders, images of the dead bodies floating in space. The court watched in silence as mothers fell holding their children, as old men tried to protect their families, as a little girl dropped her stuffed animal and never moved again. Then the survivors spoke. A woman named Bay took the stand. She was 32 years old. Her husband had died in the first massacre. "He was holding our daughter," she said quietly. "He was trying to cover her eyes so she would not see the soldiers. They shot him first. Then they shot her. She was 4 years old. Her name was. She liked purple flowers and singing songs about rain." She did not cry. She had no tears left. A young man named O spoke next. He was only 19. His parents and younger brother had died together. "My brother asked me why the aliens were being mean," said. "I did not know what to tell him. I said they were just confused. I said someone would help us soon. I lied to him. He died thinking help was coming." One by one, the survivors told their stories. Hours passed. The galaxy listened to every word. Then Park was called. She walked to the stand with steady steps. Her father watched from the gallery, his hands clasped together. She sat down and looked directly at. "During the captivity," she began, "I made medicine to keep the children calm. There was a boy named Go. He was 8 years old. His parents were killed in the first 2 attacks. He was alone." She paused. The courtroom was completely silent. On the second night he became very sick. Fear and grief had broken something inside him. I held him for 6 hours. He asked me if his mother was waiting for him in heaven. I told him yes. I told him she was watching over him. I told him everything would be okay. Her voice remained calm, but her eyes glistened. "He died in my arms 2 hours before the rescue. He was the last person to die on that ship. He was 8 years old, and he died asking for his mother." The courtroom felt the weight of her words. Even the judge, a man who had seen terrible things in his long career, looked away for a moment. was given a chance to speak. He stood proudly and faced the cameras. "I regret nothing," he announced. "Humans are livestock. You are weak creatures who pretend to be civilized. The strong take what they want. The weak accept it. This is the law of the universe. I was simply teaching you your place." He smiled his sharp-toothed smile. "You will die eventually, all of you. And when you do, the will rise again. You cannot kill an idea. You cannot destroy our pride. We are eternal." The judge listened without expression. When finished, the trial moved to its conclusion. The verdict was unanimous: guilty on 153 counts of murder. The sentence was death. The galaxy erupted in shock. Capital punishment had been abandoned by the Union 6,000 years ago. It was considered a sign of primitive cultures, something that evolved species had left behind. Ambassador made one final appeal. He traveled to Earth and stood before President in her office. "Please," he begged, "show mercy. Show the galaxy that humanity is better than this. If you kill him, you become like him." Looked at him for a long moment, then she spoke. "We do not kill him because we enjoy it. We do not kill him because we hate him. We kill him because there must be a line. There must be a moment when civilization says, 'This is too far.' You crossed that line when you murdered children for entertainment." She walked to the window and looked out at the city. "The galaxy may forget what he did. We will not. And every species in the galaxy will know this truth. If you harm human children, there is no negotiation. There is no asylum. There is no mercy, only justice." The execution happened at sunrise 3 days later, was brought to a courtyard and tied to a post. 7 human soldiers stood in a line, their weapons raised, cursed them with his final breath. The sun rose over the mountains. 7 shots rang out. Overlord fell. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Something had changed, something that could never be unchanged. The rules that had governed civilization for 10,000 years had been broken. And in that breaking, the galaxy saw something it had never seen before. True consequences. The Dominion collapsed within a year. Without their military, they had nothing. They had ruled through fear, and when that fear was broken, everything fell apart. The species they had conquered for centuries rose up against them. Slaves became free. Colonies declared independence. The great empire, which had terrorized a corner of the galaxy for 1,000 years, crumbled like sand in the wind. And then humanity did something that confused everyone. They helped. Ships filled with food arrived at former worlds. Human doctors treated the sick and wounded, including civilians who had never hurt anyone. Engineers helped rebuild power systems. Teachers opened schools. Farmers shared seeds and knowledge. They asked for nothing in return. Ambassador of the traveled to one of these worlds to see for himself. He found a human doctor treating a child who had been injured in the rebellion. The child's mother watched with terrified eyes, expecting the human to take revenge. Instead, the doctor smiled and gave the child medicine. She patted his head gently and told the mother he would be fine. "I do not understand," said to Ambassador Myra, who had come to observe. "You executed their leader. You destroyed their fleet. How can you now show such kindness?" Myra watched the doctor work. "You think these are contradictions. They are not." "Then explain it to me, please." Myra turned to face him. "We are kind to those who are kind. We are gentle with the innocent, but we are completely without mercy toward those who prey upon the helpless. This is not contradiction. This is who we are." Thought about this for a long time. The Galactic Union held an emergency session to discuss humanity's actions. Some species were angry. They said humans had broken sacred laws. They said the execution was barbaric. They demanded punishment. Ambassador Myra stood before them all and made a proposal. "The old ways did not work," she said simply. "The murdered our children while the galaxy watched and talked about negotiation. We ended the threat in 11 minutes. Now I offer you something new." She activated a display that showed the document behind her. The doctrine, a formal treaty. Any species that commits atrocities against civilians will face unified military response. Not negotiation, not sanctions, response. If you murder innocents, the galaxy will stop you. Together. The hall erupted in argument. Ancient species shouted that this was madness. Younger species listened quietly, thinking about all the times negotiation had failed. But then something unexpected happened. A small species called the Stood Up. They had been conquered by the 200 years ago. Half their population had died. The other half had been enslaved. "We sign," their ambassador said quietly. "We watched our families die while the Union talked. Humanity acted, we sign." Then the Stood, they had also suffered under the "we sign." Then dozens more. Within 5 years, every species in the Union had signed the doctrine. The galaxy had changed. Admiral Park retired from space travel. He became the human ambassador to the Galactic Union. His first act was to build a memorial for the 153 people who died on the Sunrise. Their names were carved in stone that would last for 10,000 years. Fleet Admiral returned to the shadows. The Black Fleet went back into hiding. But now everyone knew it existed. Now everyone knew what humanity could do if pushed. Commander opened a training academy. She taught young soldiers the art of protecting the innocent. Her students learned to fight, but they also learned why fighting mattered. They swore to defend those who could not defend themselves. And Park returned to her science. She developed new medicines for species she had never met. She traveled to distant worlds and healed the sick. When journalists asked about her experience on the Sunrise, she always gave the same answer. "I learned something on that ship," she would say. "Humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the oldest but we are the species that remembers. We carry our history like a scar that never heals. Every genocide, every atrocity, every child lost to evil, we remember it all. And that memory makes us dangerous to those who would repeat such horrors." She would pause and look at whoever was listening. "We are not vengeful, we are vigilant. There is a difference." 10 years after the trial of Overlord, a new species made contact with the Galactic Union. They called themselves the. They were tall and aggressive, with powerful weapons and a strong military. Their ambassador stood before the Union Council and made demands: territory, tribute, submission, the old pattern that had played out 1,000 times before. A diplomat began explaining the process of negotiation. The ambassador interrupted him rudely. "Enough talk. We take what we want, but first tell me about the humans. We have heard rumors, stories that seem impossible." The diplomat paused. He looked across the hall to where the human delegation sat quietly. A young woman with calm eyes and steady hands sat at their head. She was the daughter of a famous admiral. She had once held a dying child in her arms. The diplomat said something he had never said before. "The humans are our friends. Do not give them a reason to become your enemies." The ambassador studied the human woman. She met his gaze without flinching. She did not threaten. She did not speak. She simply sat there, perfectly still, perfectly calm. Something in her eyes made him uncomfortable. "Perhaps," the ambassador said slowly, "we were too hasty. Let us discuss terms peacefully." The crisis passed. Peace was maintained. Outside the council hall, Ambassador found Park standing alone, looking at the stars. "You did not say a word," he observed, "yet they changed their entire approach because of you." Smiled slightly. "They learned something today, something every species eventually learns about humanity." "And what is that?" She turned to face him, the starlight reflected in her eyes. "True peace is not the absence of strength. It is strength so certain that it never needs to be proven." She walked away, leaving the ambassador alone with his thoughts. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the Terran Black Fleet waited silently, watching, protecting, ready. The galaxy was safe. Humanity had made sure of it.